Hi again then guys, and welcome to another circuit build for GT Sport 1.53, this time the kind of unexpected but pretty great little sleeper car that is of course the Toyota Crown Athlete G13. Or just the Crown, as I like to call it. Now, as far as this tune goes, the obvious choice that I usually go for is to go for the lowest category that any particular car can be in, because that tends to be where a car will have its best chance at being good. But for this one, we've done it a little bit differently. Instead of N200, which it can go into, I've done this one for N300, so that at least you do have a healthy amount of power to shift all of the size and weight that this car is carrying around. And as it turns out, it's very good in N300. Now, it's not the fastest I've done, but I mean, I've done Porsches, so of course it isn't, but it's better than you might think. Now, as far as the upgrades go, I would strongly recommend dropping the weight, of course. As far as power, you want 111% for N300, and if you're new to my tunes, you don't have to keep this in N300 if you don't want to. You can detune it to N200, you can increase it to N400 or even higher if you want to. That's all down to you. This just happens to be an N300 version. Now, as far as the tyres, they are sport softs, as I've said before. Make a car good on sports tyres. Chances are it will have even more grip on racing tyres. As far as the suspension, we've dropped the ride height, not too surprisingly, 110mm on the back, 105mm on the front, so a little bit lower. As far as the frequency, we've got 2.15 on the front and the back. The anti-roll is pretty hefty, 8 on the front, 7 on the rear. For the compression on the dampers, we've got 65, as you can see, with 92 on the rebound. Little bit more camber on the back than on the front, 2.5 degrees to 2 degrees. No toe on this one, of course no downforce. As far as the diff, this works pretty well for me, but of course, give it a try. If you don't like it, you can always change it. I've gone halfway on initial torque. Then for acceleration and braking, as you can see, they are set as low as possible. Now, if you want to make it more tail happy, maybe a little bit more drift happy, you could lower the initial torque all the way and then put the acceleration and braking on 60 each. So try that out, see which one you prefer. And then finally for the gearbox, of course in N300, you don't need crazy long gears, especially when you've already got 7 of them to work with. So I would recommend a pretty high auto setting, kind of ironically, of 249 miles an hour, which is 400 kilometers per hour. Then for the individual gears, you want first all the way to the right, second is a little bit more to the right, 1.814 as you can see. Third, I think I've moved a little bit to 1291, then 1006, which I think is basically stock, 828 for 5th gear, 730 for 6th gear, and then 7th gear is almost all the way to the right on 658, and I have not touched the final drive. That's more than good enough for N300, so that you can actually use all of those gears, but as I said before with other tunes, if you do decrease or increase the power, you will want to adjust the gears. If you tune it down into N200, you need to make the gears closer, and if you tune it up, you want to make them a little bit wider. It's a very oversimplified way of looking at it, but I think you know what I mean. So that's it for the tune. Now, of course, what you want to see is what can it do on the track? Well, what it can do on the track is a whole lot, because although, as I said, this is definitely not the quickest N300 car I've built, I do feel that it's probably a stronger choice of N300 car than it would be in N200, but I would be curious to see if you guys take this tune and do detune it to N200, what kind of results you find. So get back to me with that if you do try it, and of course, also if you try it in N400 for example, or higher, but N300 is of course what this is primary set up for here. Now in terms of lap time, you're looking at around a 155, and to put that into perspective, that is actually faster than a lot of my favourite N300 cars. It's quicker than the Hyundai Genesis, it's even quicker than the E92 BMW M3, it's quicker than the BMW Z8. This is impressive stuff for a large sedan. Now, of course, it's not as quick as something like a Porsche 996 generation GT3, in fact it's a good 2 or 3 seconds behind that, but again, the Porsches are so OP, that's not surprising at all. So ultimately, this is the kind of tune and the kind of car that I would recommend trying if you want to try something that's different. It's a bit more oddball, more of a sleeper, and one of the biggest advantages that I believe this car could have is on a track where you need more straight line power. Because although they're all N300, so of course they're running similar power anyway, there are definitely cars that do more with that power than others. And something like a big sedan, you will often find has a surprisingly good top-end speed. So it would not surprise me at all if this turns out to be really good for something like N300 Le Mans, for example, or Monza, or something like that. With that being said, It's no slouch through corners either. It still feels heavy, of course, and it is a large vehicle, but if you want to try something that is a bit more challenging, maybe a bit larger, but also surprisingly forgiving, this is the car for you. But that's it for this tune overall. Of course, click the playlist here on screen to see all of my other builds, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.